Background. Keegan has been the curriculum director at Shaman International School for the past 5 years. This role was critical during that 5-year span because the school completely revamped their entire curriculum. Keegan is one of the most well-versed educators I have ever met in terms of curricular knowledge. He is also heavily involved in all areas of school life, including extracurricular activities, board meetings, strategic planning work, and accreditation. Throughout the interview, he continually reminded me about the ultimate purpose of curriculum, which is to do what is best for students. The interview process with Keegan Combs went rather smoothly. We spent time on some structured questions first, things like what is curriculum to you, in which he explained to me all of the different areas of curriculum that he saw. How can curriculum impact schools? We talked a lot in this section about hidden curriculum. Tell me about your experience developing curriculum at XIS. This experience was one of his more important things that I wanted to discuss. And what are your suggestions for better practice? I also included the 2 following quotes that I got reactions from Keegan on that I included in my final paper. These 2 quotes are things that exemplified what I think about in education. What I learned from Keegan is that to learn is to change. It truly is. And that we need to be thinking about as educators what that learning specifically looks like. The coming up with a plan is the most important part of being an educator. This plan doesn't translate and doesn't make us terrific teachers. What this plan does is helps us to better understand what we are trying to show kids and what we are teaching. What kind of schools should we be creating? The discussion with Keegan led me to think much farther about education than simply about curriculum. What kind of classrooms should we create? What kind of schools should we create? How should the curriculum interact with those schools in a way that is meaningful? What kind of ways do we find that null curriculum, that hidden curriculum, and do we bring it out? And really it begs the question, like, what does a classroom look like? What does a classroom without walls look like? And what do classrooms mean to us as educators? All of these questions came out of me as I discussed these factors with Keegan. As the conversation went on, we discussed many things, including the quotes that I had posted for Keegan earlier. One of my favorite quotes from this semester that I learned was by John Dewey, where he was discussing the typical parts of what education looked like in the classrooms around the country. The typical parts of old education: its passivity of attitude, its mechanical massing of children, its uniformity of curriculum and method. John Dewey, 1915. From this, what I thought would be interesting for the video was to pull out different pictures of classrooms from the 1920s up until today, and then look at what some of the new ideas behind classrooms are, things like maker spaces. So here's the classrooms in order. So we're starting here with the 1920s classroom. Notice the stacks of books in front of the kids. Notice the nice tidy uniforms. The walls don't have much stuff on them. This is what I would consider to be a 1920s classroom. Even the desks look like they're kind of uncomfortable in nature. The room itself looks uncomfortable in nature. Notice the blackboard at the back. Also, there is kind of a lot of different writing on it that you can't really tell, but it's very structured, very regimented. 1930s classroom, still teacher directed, blackboards all over the walls, not a lot of stuff on the walls to learn from. That space is not being used for inquiry very well. Notice the books, everybody's got their book open and they're paying attention to the teacher. Notice as we move on to the 1930s, the books are on the desks. Notice how many more kids are in this classroom. But it does look like there's more stuff on the walls. I see some timelines, flowers in the room, making it more of a welcome space. You can see kind of how things are changing, how that idea of the null curriculum is taking effect on the classroom over time. 1950s classroom, an upper school classroom this time, still very parochial in nature, but there is someone up in front doing a presentation. I thought that was interesting in this picture. I thought that pushed us towards something new. Up to the 1960s, again an elementary classroom, it looks much more like the classroom that we see today. Desk looks a little more ergonomically correct. There's lots of things on the wall, stuff like that. Notice in this 1970s classroom, the students are in groups. Looks like they're working on maybe some home ec or sewing or something like that, crocheting. But this is the time period definitely dictated this kind of activity. 1980s, technology in the classroom, that is one of the big pushes of the time period. You can see it there with teacher-directed technology lessons, students with technology. 1990s, back to high-stakes testing, bigger classrooms, more students in them. Lots of things going on, even multiple teachers in the classroom, which is something that I started teaching with in the early 2000s. And in the note, here's a classroom of today. Lots of stuff on the walls, lots of colors, lots of visually stimulating things to create, but still organization, an organized environment where students can learn. And this is something of the future, possibly. Maker spaces, work areas where students can dictate what kind of projects they want to work on, facilitating creativity, learning technical skills for the future, and really just becoming all around good students. In closing this video out, I would like to say that I am all for education and I am all for curriculum development. And my three goals with curriculum development after taking this class and doing the assignments are to foster creativity, community involvement, and find all those hidden curriculum gems that can be used for educational purposes and not necessarily negativity. Thanks for watching.